So good evening, everyone. So tonight I'm going to talk to you a little bit about leadership, culture, and inspiring others. And really the opportunity where we all sit is to leave a legacy. And I'm going to describe what that means in a few minutes. Who is in the audience familiar with Cigna? Who's heard of Cigna before? Okay, that's pretty good. Who's a customer of Cigna's? Oh, even less. Okay. Well, maybe we can improve that after tonight. Who that's a customer has had a positive experience with Cigna? Okay, pretty good. Those of you who haven't, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand. So, okay. But our goal is, as a health and wellness organization that is not only based in the United States, but is based throughout the entire world, is to provide a really great customer experience. And that we believe that any time that somebody interviews with our company from a talent acquisition perspective, or we're interacting in the community, or interacting with you, HR executives, that it's an opportunity to interact with customers. And so that experience should be overwhelmingly positive. So we're highly focused on the customer centricity piece. The other piece that I'm going to talk about is that this idea of culture. This is a theme throughout the meeting here with GDS. Culture probably is, as you all know, one of the hardest things to change as an HR professional. But one of the things that if you can change is perhaps the most rewarding. So it's a real opportunity for us to continue to have this dialogue over the next 3 days or 2 days with each other as experts in this area. And I don't have all the answers. I'm going to share with you some exciting pieces to Cigna, and I have a few rhetorical questions to ask you at the end as well. Okay? So we can play the video?
So this is what it is. The competitiveness comes from, I don't like losing. And when I got injured, my mind began to go from I'm Sergeant King, the battlefield leader, to who am I now? I'm a guy without legs.
Lead with your left side. There you go.
Imagine taking away Michael Jordan's jump shot. Well, that's what happened when Cedric lost his legs, because if you would cut him open, it's probably part of his DNA.
But I have him on videotape where he looks over and he says, "You guys aren't gonna get me back in that wheelchair." And he meant it.
You're not gonna be able to get me back on that wheelchair, I can tell you that. It was like, hey, I do remember. This is what I like to do. I do like to work out. I do like to give 100%.
I had been guiding wounded veterans for a handful of years prior to that, and I got to meet Cedric, and we hit it off a little bit, and he asked me to guide him. The intimacy that's created out there on the running course is like something I've never experienced before. When you see it, and you feel it, and you taste it, if you will, it blows you away in terms of the art of the possible.
Welcome back, Captain America. Welcome back.
Watching someone like Dave, who doesn't have to be there by your side, but is willing to, it renewed something in me about the American people, honestly, that we're not gonna give up on our wounded service members that are coming back home. Cigna doesn't feel like a company. Cigna feels more like family.
We believe in power of possibilities. When you boil it down then, as a corporation, Cedric symbolizes all of that, right? As a Master Sergeant Army Ranger, he could do anything, and then his life got changed on a dime. He's back to a person who could do anything, period, full stop. And that's really powerful.
The biggest thing is this. If you look over your life, everything, every lesson that you've learned, every course that you've taken, it builds to build you. Life has given me a unique set of obstacles to deal with, not to kill me, but to make me better, to make the best come out of me.
So a pretty powerful video, right? And that's our CEO, David Cordani, who is incredibly inspiring. He lives what he says. He's authentic. He demonstrates strong emotional and social intelligence. And people kind of feel that positive energy, right? That whole idea of emotional and social intelligence, when you feel felt. Whenever you have a conversation with David, you really feel that way. And the idea is that when you try to attract hot MBA students coming from all different top universities to come work for your companies, very few people are like, oh, I want to work for an insurance company, right? I mean, come on, who raises their hand for that? But when we have interns and we give exposure to talent through the talent acquisition process to what we do and who we are, we hardly have any turnover with our employees because people feel very close to what David strives to do every day, not only for himself as a leader, but also for all of us, the 79,000 of us in the company worldwide. So our mission as an organization, our mission at Cigna is to improve the health, well-being, and peace of mind for those that we serve. That's our goal. And we like to think of ourselves not as a health insurer, but a health and wellness organization. So our goal is to be a category of one, not only in the healthcare or health and wellness industry, but in general. So no longer are your organizations or our organizations being held to your sector or industry standards. We're being held to the Amazon experience and Zappos experience and all others. So we all need to kind of rise to the occasion. And we want to be the undisputed partner of choice. So is every decision that you get regarding your healthcare going to be a positive decision? No. And unfortunately, in the US, those of you who live in the US, the vast majority of Americans believe that when they're sick, they should get treated. When they have insurance, it should be covered. We all do, right? We take that, it's kind of like we take it for granted. I worked at Pfizer 12 years before coming to Cigna, and it was the same idea, same philosophy. But we really do desire to be customer-centric and the undisputed partner of choice in this process. So what are our values as an organization? We care deeply, and I mean deeply, about our customers, patients, and coworkers. We partner, collaborate, and keep our promises. We innovate and adapt. We act with speed and purpose. And we create a better future together. Our tagline is together all the way. So, we all live, I teach as a professor, I've taught for the past 18, so I do have more titles onto that nonsense that was there, right? I guess. So I've taught as a professor, I have 2 doctorate degrees, which makes me probably a little bit OCD and crazy, but 2 doctorate degrees. My first is in healthcare and leadership. My second is in human capital development with a focus on talent management. And so when I work with my students, I teach mostly at the master's level as well as in the doctoral programs, helping with dissertations. This is true no matter what industry you're sitting in today, that we live in this VUCA environment. Does anybody know what I mean when I say VUCA? Yeah, so volatile, uncertain, chaotic, ambiguous, right? We all live in this environment. We can never be ahead of the curve faster, right? That's the important part. But in the health and wellness industry, this is true for all your organizations because most of you supply health insurance for your employees. Chronic disease is creeping up. The aging population. I'll talk about the population in general a little bit later. But affordability challenges, rapidly evolving technology. So when hospital systems and PBMs and healthcare organizations invest in technology, by the time they implement the technology, it's obsolete. Changing legislative environment. I mean, the political environment in the United States is chaotic. There's no question about it. And the government's inability to fund healthcare. So this is really a challenge for us as an industry, and we're continuing to evolve and adapt as we move through this ecosystem, not only in healthcare, but in business in general. So talent, as it relates to everything that you do. We are fortunate in many ways as human resource executives, and I would argue that we are business executives first before we are human resource executives. But we want to be the undisputed partners of choice with our business partners, right? That's our goal. That we have 5 generations today working in the workforce. And that creates tremendous opportunity for each one of you and all of us that are in this space, but it also creates challenges. So we have 5 generations. It's never happened before in the history of work. And we have this idea of robotics and AI coming in. So how do you manage AI? What does that look like in your organizations? Artificial intelligence. How do you manage bots? What do you do when you reskill and upskill employees that did call center work before, and all of a sudden the bots go down? and nobody has that intellectual knowledge or historical knowledge to supply that information. So are we thinking about those things as HR professionals? This is something that a head of strategy that I created for our team. Because we in Cigna before, for human resources, we were very siloed, a lot like other organizations. So for our talent management organization, you can see the circles in the middle. So we have talent planning and solutions, which assessments are in there, leadership assessments. We have talent acquisition, employee relations, global leadership development, organizational development, learning solutions, and learning experience. But really the idea is that ultimately, we need to drive business strategy. That's why we're all here. That's why you're here today. And then we hope that driving business strategy will align with driving talent strategy. We believe from a systems model perspective that each one of these levers, the gray on the outside, right? Succession planning, onboarding, leadership development, whatever it might be, that we can move at any given point in time based on the business needs to help drive talent results and business results. So we call this our systems model in talent management. Many of you may have a similar model. I'm happy at any point in the cocktail after my discussion to have a conversation with you about it. So what does leadership development look like at Cigna? One of the things that David, I'll give him credit for this, is that he said from an engagement perspective, we were seeing that senior leaders weren't all that connected with the vast majority of our population, our employees. And employees didn't really know our senior leaders in the organization. So we developed what we call as leaders as teachers in the organization, where leaders as teachers come to training sessions, or we have some specialized MBA programs with the University of Hartford and also Northwestern University, where they come and serve as guest lecturers to tell a little bit about their teachable points of view, their insight, and their perspective. And that's really helped drive the engagement from a culture perspective. But on the right-hand side of the screen here, you see the various levels. One of our challenges is because now we went from 40-some thousand employees to 79,000 employees, is scalability. And many of you may be facing that same challenge with scaling resources and time. So we have on the ladder here is people leader, emerging leader, senior leader, and enterprise leader. And on the sides, we have broad enterprise solutions. So we use Degreed and LinkedIn Learning as to try to reach a large portion of our audiences, and more customized approach to leadership development, including executive coaching that we offer. We offer specialized programs and solutions, and then high potentials we have programs for. But having said this, when I was at Pfizer and I was at Cigna here, and I teach leadership, that's my expertise, is that I'm sure that each one of you sitting here have had the same experience that I have. We tend to hire from a talent acquisition the best salespeople, the best lawyers, the best chemists, the best whatever they might be, and they knock it out of the park as individual contributors. But when you put those individual contributors that were so successful into people management roles, they are underprepared, and it's vastly different. The competencies and skill sets of being a successful individual contributor are very, very different than being a successful leader and manager. And we here have the opportunity to shape that trajectory. All right? But really the development from a leadership perspective, we are able to be nimble. So we're using Agile, like probably many of you in the organization in terms of MVPs and development. But with our leadership development programs, we're trying to be at the forefront of thinking of what we want to do for the future of our organization. We're ensuring, because before, as I mentioned, we were siloed, there was no coherence or synergy between what talent acquisition was doing and what leadership development was doing. It was all over the place. And so we also have mentoring as well in the organization. And we're working on, right now, a new competency model, of course using Lominger, but finding out what do we want our general competencies to be, and what do we want our leadership competencies to be as a combined organization. So, many people, as I do these talks all over the world, say to me, what are the most important, Dr. Rindell, what are the most important parts of leadership? And I'm going to tell you, this is from my perspective of doing research and doing these a lot, is that I believe there are 3 roles to being a successful leader. You may agree, maybe not. You have to drive results. So no matter where you are, whatever industry, you have to drive results. And what that looks like to me is the adaptability, being adaptable and flexible, demonstrating strong business acumen, being a business person first, and then as a leader, telling the what, the how, and most importantly, as Simon Sinek mentioned, the why, because we often forget to do that. We move too fast. The second is engage and develop talent. The first point there is create an engaging culture and organizational climate. So most people don't leave, as you know, organizations, they leave the leader or the climate that they're experiencing. Inspire and motivate your talent, and be a talent scout, a coach, and a talent developer. The third is shape the future. And that looks like demonstrating a growth mindset. So Marcus Buckingham, Kelly, should we introduce? And I'm going to show you in a minute, we profoundly changed our performance management system and have moved towards that growth mindset piece. And that's really critical to developing the future of our organization and the future of talent. Ability to predict ahead of the competition, the trends from a business and human capital perspective, and succession planning. We all do succession planning, but I would challenge you, because we don't do it well at Cigna as well as we should, is that every time a new job comes up, we never go to that succession chart, right? I don't know where it goes, but I never see it. So that's probably what happens with your organization as well. But these are, for me, distilling it down, what are the three most important roles of a leader? And you could say manager as well. But on top, overarching of this, to me, emotional and social intelligence, authenticity, and really good listening skills are critical. And I would put coaching in there as well. Okay? So what have we done to kind of develop this culture and organizational environment at Cigna? I spoke last year at the conference about how we completely revamped our performance management system. So you read the article in HBS and Deloitte where they've removed their performance management like many other companies. We too followed that track. We work with the Neuro Leadership Group out of Australia with Dr. David Rock and also Marcus Buckingham Company to revamp our performance management system. Because it doesn't really feel great as an employee to walk around all year with that scarlet letter on your chest that you met expectations, you were below expectations, or it doesn't feel good. You want to have that kind of growth mindset piece of focusing on your strengths, making sure that your opportunities don't become a weakness, but focusing on your strengths. So the idea is to connect, encourage new and deeper connections throughout the organization, energize team members in whatever way they get energized. So as leaders, we typically coach how we feel comfortable coaching. It's just like leadership. So is anybody familiar with the article Goleman wrote on what makes a leader? So basically, Daniel Goleman he's the one that brought emotional and social intelligence to the workforce from the Harvard Business School. And he basically says that there's 6 leadership styles. Does anybody play golf? Come on, somebody must play golf. I can't see very well, but yeah. Okay. So even if you don't play golf, you understand that in the game of golf, you have a bag and a bunch of clubs and balls, right? And basically, you choose whatever club you want to hit based on how far you want to hit it, unless you're my 10-year-old son who plays with a putter and tries to hit it to the tee. That doesn't work. But as leaders, we are all comfortable using 1 or 2 leadership styles, just because that's how we've been trained and how we feel comfortable. But the reality is, Goleman says, is just like the game of golf, the best golfers in the world are able to use whatever club's in the bag, however far they want to hit the shot. That's what club they choose. Where we have a preference of maybe using 1 or 2, it's like leadership. If you can use as a leader all 6 leadership styles based on the person and the situation, then you will be very successful. Okay? But it's not something that will happen overnight. It's a learned process and behavior. So energizing team members. We believe that by doing that, we'll achieve improved organizational performance. And then last but not least, enable personalized growth. So using the David Rock methodology, he talks about the SCARF model, that each of us are motivated by something different. SCARF stands for status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. So if you as a leader know which one of those are most important to your direct report, you can customize your coaching conversation and your conversation with them to be more meaningful and relevant to them. So that's what that means, enableize personalized growth, and talk about rewards. So with that, we've invested in our employees. We did a study a few years ago with Accenture and the Lumina Foundation looking at our educational reimbursement program. And what we found was pretty profound. We found that from an ROI perspective, for every dollar we invested in the educational reimbursement program, we received $1.29 in return. I'll say that again. For every dollar we invested in our educational reimbursement program, we received $1.29 in return. And what that looks like from a talent perspective is turnover. ERP participants are retained more than non-ERP participants, 8% more likely to be retained. A benefit to the organization, $9.7 million. Promotions, ERP participants achieve more promotions than non-participants, resulting in lower cost to fill vacancies from a TA perspective. 10% more likely to be promoted, savings of $13.9 million. Last, transfers amongst, in inter-office, 7.5% more likely to be transferred, equating to $12.2 million for a savings of $35.8 million. There is no business leader in the world, if you go to them and show them the study, and I'm happy to share it with any of you who are interested, and you say, I want to invest in our talent, and you show these results, that will say, no, we're not going to invest on them. So we used to give $52.50 for educational reimbursement like many companies. We were able with this study to invest for strategic areas based on strategic talent planning to $12,000 a year. So our employees for graduate assistance education get $12,000 a year if it aligns with our strategic talent planning areas of focus, plus an additional $1,500 for books, fees, and materials. And because we changed the performance management system for Connect for Growth, we don't want people to be at Cigna that don't want to be here. So many of your organizations may have like a payback feature for their educational reimbursement for 2 years if they don't stay. David, because David believes, as our CEO, that the talent is the heart of our organization, and he really believes that. Like, he's not just saying it, he believes it. And he's showed it through his investment in the talent. We have very low turnover. So we don't want people to hang around because they finish their degree and they don't know what to do with it, or they don't want to be here. If they leave, they leave. That's part of the growth mindset piece. So we want to do, through the educational reimbursement program, best in class, attract, develop, and retain. So we use it from a TA perspective, we use it for developing our employees, and we use it for retaining our employees. Key differentiator, all of us, each one of you in these seats, have to think about how we're reskilling and upskilling our employees. As AI comes in, robotics come in, if you're not, we're behind the 8 ball, okay? And then really the idea is, there's a book called Time, Talent, and Energy by Michael Mankins and Eric Garten. And this is really we're working closely with the Bain Group on this, but really the idea is to accelerate our enterprise workforce strategy from moving from highly engaged to highly inspired. And that's the piece. So when we benefit at Cigna from having a really highly engaged workforce because they connect closely with the vision and mission of the organization, but we want to do more. We want to move to inspired. So we're working with the Bain Group on that. Bless you. So making meaningful connections outside of Cigna. We encourage our employees to be really involved in the local community. We work with environmental, social, and governance on various pieces as well. And we have a Cigna Foundation that supports employees and organizations all around the world. So this is one that I'm personally involved in. Is anybody probably recall, a few years ago, the massacre that happened at the Sandy Hook Elementary School in Connecticut. And Scarlett Lewis lost her son, Jesse, who was 5 years old at the time. And she is incredibly brave to do what she's doing, but she's developed a nonprofit called the Jesse Lewis Choose Love Foundation. And the idea is to bring this concepts of emotional and social intelligence through curriculum to schools for free. So it's a free program. And it's in all 50 states, I'm happy to say. It's in all 50 states and 32 different countries around the world. And look at the stats. 100% of survey respondents say they have seen an improvement in classroom climate and student overall behavior. So as leaders who deal in this space, what are we doing to give back to our local communities? This is a great opportunity and something that I'm incredibly passionate about. So now I'm going to turn it away from Cigna and turn it to you a little bit, okay? So how are you, it's rhetorical, but how are you as an HR executive operating as a category of 1? Or how do you want to operate as a category of 1? And how do you set the standard by which all are measured? leading by example, like David. So, question to you is, what's your story? And this is a question that I often ask leaders when I meet them for an interview perspective or just in a leadership development perspective. But the question is, why should anyone be led by you? Why should anyone be led by you? Now, you don't have to answer it, but if you had to answer that in 1 minute or less, could you articulate that? And the idea of the picture there is when writing your story, don't let anyone else hold your pen. Right? What's your purpose in life? We all have a story. We all have a story. The idea is that each of you, as leaders and as successful HR executives, each have the drive, the control, and the influence to write the next chapter of your story. What's that going to be? Okay. So can everybody close their eyes for me? Entertain me for a second, okay? So close your eyes for me. I'm going to ask a question. Are you fulfilling your life's purpose? Are you fulfilling your life's purpose, both personally and professionally? Okay? And can you do more to help your talent and organization be more engaged and inspired? Okay? Oop, hold on. I didn't want to show you that yet. Okay, you can open your eyes. Play the video, please.
When we're laying on our deathbed, you're not going to worry about how much money you had, how much power you had, how much prestige. You're going to see that that was all game, that that was all an illusion. The only thing that's going to matter is the impact you had on other people's lives.
We are all on a separate journey. But the beautiful thing about our life here on this earth is at my funeral, they ain't going to talk about my success. They're going to talk about who Nick was and how Nick lived and how Nick loved and encouraged.
Success is incredibly important, but even more important than success, it's having an impact. It's knowing you haven't walked the planet in vain. It's knowing that because you've been here, you've blessed lives, you've developed people, and you have made the world a better place.
The effect you have on others is the most valuable currency there is. Everything you gain in life will rot and fall apart, and all that will be left of you is what was in your heart.
Life is a mirror, and life gives us not what we want. Life gives us who we are. When you were born, you cried while the world rejoiced. Live your life in such a way that when you die, the world cries while you rejoice.
Okay, pretty powerful video. So what's your next chapter? And how will each of you leave a legacy? So thank you for your time and attention this evening. I hope to connect with most of you after and connect on LinkedIn, but I wish you all the best of success and thank you for continuing to make our profession such a great place to be. Good luck.